We got an early start the next day with a morning flight from Xi'an to Chongqing. Chongqing is a mountainous city built on the confluence of the Yangtze and the Jialing rivers. It is in Sichuan province and is known for its hot temperatures, hot food, and hot women. In the summer it gets very hot and humid. The food is spicy, and the women are known to have hot tempers. It's also known as the City of Fog. It has more fog than London. Chongqing is a high-technology manufacturing center. The central government wanted Chongqing to share their wealth with the surrounding poor area, so they made the city limits include all of Sichuan area. As a result, the city has 8 million people, but the city limits include 32 million. The Chinese refer to World War II as the Anti-Japanese War. The Japanese invaded China in 1931, and during the war the Chinese lost all of their major coastal cities to the Japanese. So they made Chongqing their capital because it was in the mountains and was difficult to invade. The Japanese bombed it for 5 years and destroyed every building, forcing the residents to live in caves in the mountains. During the war, Chongqing was also the home base of the American Volunteer Air Group, the Flying Tigers. We arrive at the zoo and walk straight to the panda exhibit. White pandas are bears that live in the mountains of south-central China. By 1900, the number of pandas were down to 1,000. But efforts by the World Wildlife Federation have increased their number to 1,700. We first watched an adult male named Ling Ling. Ling Ling was born in 1995 and lived in the zoo since 2003. He has 25 offspring, including pandas who are now living in Japan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. I learned that panda bears sleep a lot. They have stubby little tails. And they are curious, always looking for food or freedom. The greatest entertainment of the day was provided by Tintin, a 7-month-old male who was the offspring of Lin Ling. He had boundless energy and curiosity. He was awkward and clumsy, but with his sharp claws he was able to do some impressive climbing. He was cute and friendly, a real live teddy bear. Let's enjoy his antics. Time to leave as our friendly panda waves goodbye. Our next stop was a museum, that had in past centuries been a home for visitors to the city. We happened upon a bride and groom where the bride was wearing a traditional Chinese wedding dress. The highly decorative gold and red dress came with a matching parasol. On the railing and around the courtyard, colorful strings were tied to make a wish. Wishes were also brought to the statue of Emperor Daiyu. He is the hero of water control who brings rain to crops or prevents floods. The mockingbird is often featured in Chinese lore because the call of the bird sounds like good luck in Chinese. There were several staged scenes in the museum. This one shows a young man being brought to an arranged marriage where he has not yet met his bride. In the background, the bride sneaks a peek at her future husband. On the platform below are real people playing mahjong, which is extremely popular in this area. As we left the museum, our guide pointed out a small statue on the roof known as the Constipated Dragon. It's called that because it eats money and it eats wishes, but it expels nothing. Still, it's a popular good luck idol. The next portion of our journey is a river cruise down the Yangtze River. The first challenge is to get on the ship. Dragging our luggage, we navigate down steep steps and across a series of metal pontoons out into the middle of the river. As night falls, Chongqing turns into a city of lights. The Opera House is ultra-modern, with continually changing lighting. It's modeled after the Sydney Opera House, as is the bridge over the river. Gliding down the river, we leave Chongqing behind. We woke up the next morning docked at the town of Shibaozhai. Scanning the horizon downstream, we see calm water with a few new buildings in the distance. Approaching is a passenger ship similar to our own. Like all ships on the river, this is Chinese-owned. The rickety-looking metal pontoons provide a walkway to the shore. This is the first of many cities that we will see that had to be completely rebuilt on higher ground after the completion of the Three Gorges Dam. We are told that the Yangtze River is the most polluted in the world, yet we see people on shore washing their clothes, their motorbikes, and themselves, while others are fishing. Scanning upstream, we see our reason for being here. There stands a 400-year-old pagoda of great historical significance that has a concrete wall built around it to protect it from the rising waters caused by the dam. In this 1909 photo, the pagoda was surrounded by a village of shacks. In 1945, that photo was used on the back of Chinese currency. In 1980, more buildings covered the island, but when the dam was constructed, they were all torn down, and a wall was built to protect this historic site. We exit the boat to walk through town to reach the pagoda. On the riverbank, crops are planted that need to be harvested before the river rises and the area floods. Our road through town was lined with souvenir shops and small outdoor restaurants. The original town is now underwater, and the new town was built above the water line. The occupation of the people changed then from farming to tourism. To reach the pagoda island, we had to walk across a cable bridge that moved with every step and made you feel like you were going to fall into the river at any moment. It's appropriately named the Drunken Bridge, and I did not feel comfortable on it. Once across the bridge, we got a good view of our ship and a closer view of the pagoda. Note the pagoda entrance is well below the water level. The pagoda is called the Shepinoznia Temple or Precious Stone Fortress, also known as the Purple Rain Pavilion. It has 12 levels and 99 steps and replaced an uncomfortable chairlift. No nails were used, only pegs. Listed on the board are the names of the original contributors who paid to have it built in 1405. The roof behind the entryway shows 2 dragons and a boy who is a character like Peter Pan, who slayed a dragon but would not grow up. The meaning of these 3 popular signs is peace, happiness, and double happiness. We see a bronze statue of a general leading his soldiers and subjects. Next we see the great emperor. Surrounding him are the East God, which has musical abilities to stop armies, the South God, who has a sword that can stop armies, the West God, who has a third eye that can stop armies, and the North God, who controls the weather and can stop armies. We learn the story of the goddess mother who had 6 daughters, and one of her daughters descended to earth and married a mortal. But mother forced her to abandon the marriage and return to heaven. The daughter who committed the heresy is the one wearing the earrings, which is a sign of marriage, and she is looking down to earth below. Another story was told about a monk who used to get money every day from a hole and decided to open it to get more, but his greed ruined it. After a last look at the view from the top of the mountain, we descend the stairs and head back to the ship. It's early in the morning and there's a light fog as we begin our tour of the 3 Gorges area of the Yangtze River. The river is 4,000 miles long, which makes it the 3rd longest river in the world. The barren, vegetation-free band along the shore shows the height of the river during the flood season when the dam is filling. The river was originally called the Chongqing, which means Long River. It starts in Tibet at an altitude of 20,000 feet and heads first south and then north and then proceeds east to the sea. Human history on the river dates back to 27,000 BC. It has some 400 different kinds of birds and half of the wildlife in the country. It's also the most polluted river in the world and has the most endangered species. Half of the crops in the country are produced in this river basin, and nearly half of the population of the earth is served by it. We are on the middle, which is the working river devoted to fishing and rice farming. The lower or Golden River carries 100 million tons of freight, and the outlet to the sea is called the Golden Triangle, and it has 113 million people. The Yangtze has experienced one large flood every 10 years, with the last one being in 1998. To solve this problem and harness the power of the river, the 3 Gorges Dam was built, which backs up the water 180 miles. Building the dam increased the water level in the river, submerging many villages, so now we see an abundance of white houses and buildings high on the embankment, which were all new homes provided to those who had lost their homes when the dam was built. The 3 Gorges region is 100 miles long. It consists of the Wutang Gorge, the Wu Gorge, and the Jiling Gorge. The Wutang Gorge is the shortest and has a natural gate formed by the mountains. The Wu Gorge is the most magnificent and has sheer cliffs that seem to close in on you. The Jiling Gorge is 50 miles long and ends in the dam. The cliff inscriptions are more than 2,000 years old and date back to the Warring States period. The most notable peak we pass is the Goddess Peak, which looks like a hand and thumb. With the Goddess Peak overhead, we arrive at the Goddess Peak Scenic Area for our next adventure. We're about to ride a sampan on Goddess Stream into the Canyon of Sheer Beauty. The stream was originally just a brook, but after the dam was built and the water rose, it became a navigable stream with extraordinary landscape. It's a peaceful, quiet ride, removed from any signs of population. The banks are sheer cliffs, worn smooth by erosion. The surrounding mountains seem to go straight up to staggering heights. Our tour guide on the sampan was a 22-year-old young lady who was a college graduate. She explained how her grandfather, when he was her age, worked as a tracker who pulled ships upstream using a rope and harness. He earned the equivalent of 25 cents a day in brutal conditions. He was called a river dog. His story is a dramatic example of how the lives of Chinese have changed in just a few generations. We turn and float downstream to the dock, where we reboard our ship and are on our way. Continuing down the river, we pass through the Shiling Gorge. The mountains are not as high, and we begin to see more towns. As we begin to see more freight traffic, we know that we are approaching the dam and our next adventure.